All right, let's dive right into one of the most powerful and, honestly, one of the longest-lasting empires in all of history, the Ottoman Empire. We're talking about a 6-century-long global superpower, a real bridge between East and West that, believe it or not, completely shaped the world that we all live in today.
So first, just let this number sink in. 600. 600 years. I mean, think about that for a second. To put that into perspective, that's way longer than the Western Roman Empire stuck around, and it's more than double the entire history of the United States. So yeah, this wasn't some flash in the pan. This was a dominant, enduring force for centuries.
And just take a look at the sheer scale of it. This empire was literally a bridge straddling 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. At its height, you have to understand, it was the absolute center of the Islamic world. And it was a military powerhouse that, well, let's just say it kept European kings up at night.
So that brings us to the 2 big questions, right? The core of what we're going to unpack here. First, how on earth did a small state from Anatolia blow up into such a colossal empire? And second, after 600 years of dominance, what in the world could possibly bring it all down?
Okay, so if you want to understand the Ottoman Empire's incredible rise to superpower status, it really all hinges on one absolutely pivotal, world-changing event.
The year is 1453, and this is the moment everything changes. The fall of Constantinople wasn't just another battle, not by a long shot. It was like a thunderclap that echoed across the globe, announcing, loud and clear, that a new superpower had just arrived on the world stage.
So, how did they pull it off? Well, it all came down to technology. The Sultan, Mehmed II, who'd later be known as the Conqueror, brought in these massive cannons. We're talking about some of the most powerful artillery the world had ever seen. And he used them to just shatter the city's legendary, supposedly unbreakable walls. This incredible mastery of gunpowder is exactly why historians call them one of the great gunpowder empires of the age.
And the impact? It was nothing short of a geopolitical earthquake. I mean, that's the perfect way to describe it. The shockwaves were felt everywhere, completely shattering the old world order. It just went to show how absolutely central that one city was to the global balance of power.
And this is where you really see the domino effect. I mean, the consequences were just huge. First off, boom, the Byzantine Empire, which was pretty much the last piece of the Roman Empire, was gone. Just like that. The city itself was reborn as Istanbul, the incredible new capital for the Ottomans. Then you've got all these scholars fleeing the city, taking ancient Greek texts with them to Italy, and helping spark the Renaissance. And maybe the biggest domino of all? It forced Europeans to find new sea routes to Asia, which directly kicked off the age of exploration. It's wild. One single event literally changed the course for multiple civilizations.
Okay, so you build this massive empire. Now, how do you actually run it? How do you rule over so many different kinds of people, with different religions and cultures, for centuries? Well, the answer lies in this really unique and kind of brilliant social machine they built.
And at the absolute heart of this machine was a system called Devshirme. Now, this sounds pretty intense. It was basically a blood tax. Christian families living in the Balkans would give up one of their young sons to the state. These boys were then brought to the capital, they'd convert to Islam, and then they'd get the absolute best education the empire could possibly provide.
So let's walk through the path these boys took. Once they were selected, they were completely integrated into the Ottoman system. Now, if you were one of the smartest kids, you got trained to become a top government official, maybe even a grand vizier, who were second in power only to the Sultan himself. And if you were one of the strongest and most athletic, you were headed for the military. And here's the absolute genius of the system. The result? You get an elite ruling class with no family ties, no land to inherit, and no loyalty to their old home region. Think about it. Their only allegiance was to the Sultan. This created an administration and an army that were completely, unshakably loyal to the state. Now, the most famous and feared product of this whole system, the Janissaries. This was an elite military corps, fiercely loyal, super disciplined, and they were basically the first modern standing army in Europe. And because they were masters of those gunpowder weapons we talked about, they became one of the most feared fighting forces on the entire planet.
But, it wasn't all just about military might and clever administration. This incredible stability allowed for a true golden age of culture. The empire wasn't just a war machine. It produced some of the most breathtaking art and architecture you'll ever see, all based on this unique blend of cultures.
I mean, just look at the incredible Blue Mosque in Istanbul. This masterpiece was designed by the legendary architect Sinan, and what you're looking at is a perfect blend of cultures. You see that massive, soaring dome? That's a clear nod to the Byzantine style of the famous Hagia Sophia right nearby. But then you have those tall, slender minarets, and that's pure Islamic architectural tradition. Fusing those two together, that created a style that was uniquely and beautifully Ottoman.
But of course, no empire lasts forever. And for the Ottomans, the fall wasn't this one big, dramatic event. It was a long, slow decline that happened over centuries. You could really call it a death by 1,000 cuts.
Now, we can point to a couple of major military turning points. First, in 1571, there's the naval Battle of Lepanto. That defeat really shattered the whole idea that the Ottomans were invincible at sea. Then, fast forward to 1683, a second failed siege of Vienna, and that was pretty much it. That was the high watermark for Ottoman expansion into Europe. From that point on, they were mostly playing defense.
But it wasn't just about battles. Not at all. There were huge economic shifts happening. See, as European powers found new sea routes to Asia, they just sailed right around the Ottoman Empire, completely bypassing their old land routes. All that vital trade money, it started to dry up. And at the same time, you had a string of weaker sultans who were less and less involved in actually running things, which let corrupt officials basically run the state right into the ground.
So, by the time we get to the 19th century, this once feared global superpower had picked up a pretty unfortunate nickname in Europe, the sick man of Europe. It was this massive empire that was just struggling to keep up, struggling to modernize, losing territory left and right, and falling way behind its industrializing rivals.
And then came the final fatal blow, the nail in the coffin. The Ottoman Empire made a huge gamble and chose the losing side in World War I, siding with Germany and the Central Powers. And that sealed its fate for good.
After the war was over, the victorious allies just dismantled the empire. The Sultanate was officially abolished, and out of the ashes of that 600-year-old empire, the modern secular Republic of Turkey was born in 1923. Just like that, it was officially over.
But that leaves us with one last big question to think about. When an empire lasts for 600 years, when it shapes the politics, the culture, the very borders of dozens of modern countries, does it ever really fall? I mean, its legacy is still all around us today, etched into the map from the Balkans all the way to the Middle East. It's a long shadow that reminds us the past is never really past, is it?